Greetings and salutations, sports fans. I'm going to give a quick video here about how I do some of my cards because I get this question from everybody. This is going to be a quick overview, real 100-mile up view. I apologize for the microphone. I've tried like a million different combinations trying to get it to not work, but this video is going to be filled with pops and all sorts of other static and crap. It's a crappy microphone. I'm trying to get a better one. So the next time I do one of these videos, I'll have a better microphone for that. And if there's enough interest after this video, I'll be doing some more in-depth videos. Like I said, this video is just a 100-mile up view, kind of looking down, real general, talking about some of the basics of how I actually make some of the cards I do for the sports games that I play. So for this example, we're going to talk a little bit about like how I made my cards for History Maker Baseball. So History Maker Baseball, in case you don't know, it's a product put out by Plaay games. It's a really good baseball game. It's my favorite of the ones I've played, even though there's limited. I'm kind of a Plaay games fanboy. I like a lot of their games. Keith really doesn't make a bad game. So what I'm going to talk about is a kind of an unconventional approach to designing cards. I know that a lot of times you'll see some of these templates put out with Excel, and sometimes they're kind of limited. And I'm sure that other designers, and I'm not sure what Keith uses. If he uses Excel, I'm sure he might, but he may be using other more sophisticated tools like Illustrator, things like that. And I know that others have used programs like Illustrator for other design things, like for making game maps, things like that. So this is kind of middle of the road between maybe using Excel and like using Illustrator, like a really professional tool. Now, the one thing that is unconventional about this is I use a product called Visio, and Visio is part of the Office 360 Office package, but it's not part of their Office 365 subscription. It's part of a separate product that you can purchase separately. I think if you paid for it yearly, it would probably cost you about $100 a year. It's not cheap. Maybe you might be able to get it cheaper. If you have a student discount, you can get it for a lot cheaper. And if you have a Microsoft subscription through your work, say if you're a software developer, something like that, it comes right with it. That's how I got mine. Is I got mine through a subscription through work. But this tool is used for mostly designing things, designing different systems. So the actual use for this tool, people use it to design flow charts, they use it to design org charts, they'll even use it for doing office layouts, workflow layouts. Software developers use it quite a bit for doing their kinds of documents that they need to do, like maybe a network diagram or a flow chart or a wireframe that they need to put together, or some kind of a database diagram or class diagram, whatever. Electricians use it for putting on electrical plans. But I also find it useful as kind of like a really basic design tool so that you can put together kind of things that you might do, say, in Illustrator or in the free version, which would be Inkscape. You can do some of the things that you do in there, and you can do it a little bit easier. I find it's kind of a poor man's Inkscape or poor man's Illustrator with a little bit more abilities in some areas where I kind of find them lacking in those two programs. I do like Inkscape. I use Inkscape for some things. I like using it for designing some of the logos that I do. You'll see that some of the logos I've designed in the past, I'll take an image that I've downloaded from the internet somewhere, and then I'll usually add some lettering to it, and I'll do the lettering in Inkscape because it can do really nice, like letters on a circle or something like that. That's really kind of a nifty little feature, but and that's something I can't do with Visio. But this is just something really simple to lay out something, lay out a little design, and then print it out. So um, what I'll do is I'll usually start with what's called a basic diagram. And basic diagram includes different, just basic shapes, your squares, your triangles, your circles, rectangles. We have some other simple shapes like stars and other things like that. But um, this is very simple, very easy. Just you're going to drag your shape from a toolbox out onto the work area, size it, and put it where you want it to. So we're going to do a basic diagram, and it's going to ask you one thing here, and this is important depending on what you're going to do for your cards. So if you want your cards to be a certain size, sometimes those cards get measured in metric, or sometimes they get measured in US units. So um, sometimes you might want to work in inches, sometimes you want to work in millimeters. So this is the place to choose that from. And as we'll get into this, I'm going to talk a little bit more about card size too, and some ideas on that as well. So we'll just choose US units for now. We're going to create. Okay, so this is the default layout that you get. This, by the way, is Visio 2017, I think. 2013 works very similar to this. Some of the other versions may not have all these features, but 13 and 17 do. I've worked with both of them in the past to make cards, and they all work pretty much the same way. So one of the problems when you get this first screen is it designs everything assuming that you're going to design this nice, pretty layout for a presentation, some kind of business presentation, or some kind of design that you want to show off. We're not here to do that. We're here to make cards for a sports game. So it's a little bit different. And so if you notice this, the basic way to do this, and I'm going to expand this toolbox so that you can see what all the descriptions are and all of the different shapes are. If I go here and I drag this, well, here we got a rectangle, okay? It's a good rectangle. It's got little sizing handles on here, so I can drag on one of these little sizing handles and I can make it bigger, and I can go bigger that way, I can go bigger this way, or I can go like diagonal. And if I hover over the shape itself, I can click and then drag it elsewhere onto the canvas, okay, which is really cool. There's also a rotating handle on here, so I can actually rotate as well if I really wanted to. I don't want to, but you'll notice some of the things that I've done, I've actually used that rotating handle. If you look at my hockey cards, you'll see that I rotated text on there at an angle so that I had like some kind of I had like the shots and assist stars at an angle. It was kind of a nifty thing. People liked it. I'm not so over the hill about it anymore at this point. But anyways, you also notice everything has a color. So this shape has a fill color, and it also has a border color. So right now the border color looks like it's gray, and it's really hard to see this unless I actually made the border bigger. So I'm going to make the border just a little bit bigger so that you can kind of see that. Oops, I got to actually select the shape. Sorry. So you can see now, you can kind of see the border there. Let's zoom in a little bit more too. You can see now there's a gray border around this and it's blue. And this is from the default theme that you get when you start a new document. And for the most part, when you're doing this design, you don't want to use the theme that comes with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this design tab. And in the design tab, I'm just going to select something else. I'm going to select a no theme. I don't want a theme. So no theme basically means every one of my shapes that comes out is going to have this black rectangle around it. And it's also going to have a white background. So I'm going to drag back another shape out again. And so now you notice I go back to that thinner border. The other thing I want to do is, this is great, but it would be really hard to line things up if you don't have something lined up. Now I do have this ruler at the top and the side, and you can see as I move the shape around, you can see on the ruler there's little markers that say where it is. So like if I go here on this marker, I start at 1 on the top. If I go to 3, now I know that this is 2 inches long. I can also see at the very bottom here, it also says that it's 2 inches wide as well. Okay, um, so that's great. But I'd like to actually have something that helps me size things a little bit more. So I'm going to go to the view. I'm going to view grid. So now I have a grid in the background. And this helps me size things. One other thing is, before we get into the actual layout and stuff, I do like to work most of the time zoomed in, so I usually zoom in quite a bit and then work zoomed in. But I need to zoom back out to this next part. So what we're going to do now is talk about card size. So one of the problems that I have with Visio uh, is I cannot design cards that print all the way to the edge like Keith does on his sets. So when you get that perforated stock and Keith has and it prints out all the way to the edge, I can't do that. It prints to the margins, so our prints to margin, and the margin on here is right now set to 1/4 inch. I probably could get away with making it smaller if I wanted to, a little bit smaller if I wanted to, but it doesn't give me too much forgiveness on that. So what I usually do is I design things to the margin. So you see right here, this part here is the margin up to the grid. So this would be your piece of paper, and this would be where the margins are on that piece of paper. So one of the things that this is actually a recent kind of aha moment I had with card size, is when Keith did his soccer cards for the World Cup. Up until then, I had been designing most of my cards to be pretty close to the size that Keith does for his cards. Like his baseball cards, they'd be the same size as his baseball cards. My hockey cards would be the same size as his hockey cards, and that worked great. Then he put out those World Cup cards, and you notice, do you remember if they were much wider than the standard Soccer Blast cards, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I kind of thought, you know what? I don't need to have the same size cards that Keith does. If I can get all the information in there that Keith does, hey, that's great, awesome. But I don't have to make the same type of cards, and I can even, this is one thought I had, is I could even do something a little bit more unconventional. I could make a rectangular card that lays on its side, landscape instead of portrait. Every card that we have now lays out portrait, but what if I did a card where maybe I had there was a rectangle and maybe like in half the card, I gotta make this smaller. So maybe I have some kind of like a portrait or something on that corner or whatever. And then maybe in the other part of this, I do all the player stats and stuff like that in here, right? So I might have like in here the, what his abilities are or whatever, and then maybe, maybe put, like name and stuff at the top. So we'd have some kind of a layout like that where, we'd have the name and stuff there, and then so something like that kind of gives you an idea. Something you could do. That would be a possible layout. So as for me, I like now I'm in the school of whatever I can get to fit on this page is the best, and what I can use the most real estate, that's going to be my card size now. And then I'll work with that and then come up with whatever I did. So a lot of you guys have been talking about my baseball cards, like, oh, these are really cool and everything. And okay, they're great. Thank you for the compliments. And they were when I first started this, they were a lot of work. It's becoming less work now. It's becoming a lot easier to do, and I can do these a lot quicker. But thank you for all the compliments on that. I really appreciate it. It helps when you're someone who puts something together like that to get compliments like that, because for me, it's hard not being able to share these with everybody because the cards that I made here, like for the baseball set, are cards that are for something that Keith puts out. He puts out Baseball America. I basically took the Baseball America cards and put team colors and stuff on them and made them my own. But they're still Keith's intellectual property. So it's not something like I could go, okay, well, here you go, everybody. Here you can have this. No, I can't do that. A set I did before that, I did a 1957 baseball set. Again, everybody really loved that one, and unfortunately, that's something that in the future Keith may put on a 1957 set, and then I'm directly competing against him. So it's not something I can share with the public. Now, if I did a minor league team or something like that, that's something that Keith will never do, and that's something I could share. And I've actually been working on coming up with some ideas of something that Keith doesn't do that I could card up and then share with the public and that people could enjoy. But right now, if you have ideas, drop them in the comments. That'd be great. But other than that, what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to talk about how I kind of portion out my cards. So one of the things we're going to figure out is let's say we want to do a sheet of cards where there's 6 cards going down the sheet and 3 tall. Okay, so 18 cards on the sheet. So we would start, and this is actually what I did for my baseball cards, for my baseball set. That's exactly how I printed them out. So we're going to find out what the card size is. So we can do this mathematically, which is interesting and fun. You know, you take and say, okay, well, I've got a page. It's got 0.25 inches of margin on each side, and I'm going to do 3 of these, and it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet. You know what? I don't really care, and I can sit there with the calculator and figure it all out, and I really don't care. I like to do it this way because when I do it this way, the shapes work out better for Visio to snap together. So I'm just going to do it this way. This is the way I've been doing it for a while now. So I kind of got to zoom in more a little bit here, or zoom out actually, and I want to get more of the page in here. And what I want to do with this here is I just want to get something that approximately would be a third of the page. So, and I want to get this so that it lines up, kind of snaps with whatever a line on the grid is. So everything looks like it lines up with the snapped on the grid. So I'm going to copy this and paste it a few times just to see how accurate I've been. That looks good. That snapped together real nicely. Wow, I got it right on the first one this time. Okay. So, and there's like a little square left over at the bottom, and that's fine. I'm not going to further subdivide each one of these by another third. I'm not going to do that. That's not worth my time. I don't think I did on my baseball cards either. I think these are going to be turned out about the same size as my baseball cards. Now I'm going to do the same thing going the other way. So I'm going to go, all right. So I said I wanted to get 6 of them in there. And these are going to be too big. Yeah, it's going to be way too big. Hang on a second. Let's go this way. And like if you do soccer cards and stuff like that, soccer cards can be a little bit shorter. I actually designed some wide soccer cards that look pretty good. They basically have the same width of this, except I did 4 stacked up on top of each other, 4 by 6. And those worked out pretty good. They look pretty close to what Keith's are. And this actually came out just perfect. So we got the size right on this one. So we now have a standard card size right here. Okay. So the next thing I do is I come up with a template. And so this template is going to be used for all the rest of the cards that I do. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to end this video. And then the next video I talk about, if there's enough people to watch this and like it and everything, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do another video talking about how I design my template. So I'm going to actually go and open one of my programs here quickly. So I go in here. So I have a full page of templates here. These are all my team templates right here for my baseball set. So you can see here, I came up with something that I can copy and paste so that when I create my actual team, so if I go to my Kalamazoo page, you'll see that I use this template. I just copied and pasted this card over and over and over and over again, a million times. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to the Teams page here. So I had spent time creating one of the templates, and then after that, once I created that base template, then I went and made a team version for each of the teams that I'm going to have, changing colors, things like that, making everything look all pretty. Once I've done all that, then I can actually go and then copy and paste them into the team pages and then start changing names and things like that and adding stuff. You notice like my template here, I have qualities for every possible line of qualities here. There's probably no pitcher in the game that has 6 qualities, but just in case, I have 6 qualities there. Same thing with hitting. I know there are hitters out there that have 6 qualities for hitting, so I have to have 6 spaces there. Most of them don't, but I have spaces for them. I have spaces for each of the fielding, the experience, and the running, and I have a space for the throws and the bats, even though not everybody does. Then I created a separate batter template too. So I created this pitcher template, then I created a batter template over here as well. So you can see right here I have this batter. So that's how that worked out. And then I would, create the cards. And we'll talk about this more. I'm going to, like I said, if there's enough interest in this, I'm going to create another video and talk about how to create one of these templates, a really simple template, very fast. And I'll talk about how to use Visio a little bit more, but I just wanted to kind of give you the basics in this video and kind of show you how this all kind of comes together, how it works. So go to view, and I want to switch windows. I'm going to go back to my drawing here. One thing I'm going to show you, this is a neat little trick, because everybody's like, oh, you do really cool silhouettes under your image or your page or your cards, I'm sorry. And everybody likes those. They think those are really cool. And like Keith, they're like, say, Keith, you got to do these. These are really cool for his cards. And now he's done them. He's doing them too. And actually, I think I don't know if I got the idea from him or if he got that. I don't know. He probably didn't get the idea from me. He doesn't really know what's going on with what I do, but that's fine. It's actually pretty simple. So what I do is I'm actually going to insert a picture. So I'm going to go into my pictures folder, and I got like an images here for batter. So I'm going to go in here and just, so here's my silhouette batter. So this is the actual image I used on these last baseball league I did. So it's an image of a ball player. It's black and white, all silhouetted. And you'll notice that on my cards it looks more gray, right? So it looks black right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink this down, and you can see how now I have this green handle on the bottom of both images. That's telling me that right now that image is just as wide as the card is, and I don't want it that wide. I want it a little bit smaller, so I just made it smaller. And the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this is kind of centered on the card, and this is actually still too big, I think, but this is fine for what we're talking about here. So now it's centered on the card, okay? Now it still looks black and everything, that's great. So what I'm going to do now, one of the things with Visio is that Visio is basically just a collection of shapes. And each of those shapes can be stacked on top of each other, or they have like what's called the Z order. So they may be on the bottom of the stack, they may be in the middle of the stack, they may be on the top of the stack. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take that baseball player, I'm going to send him all the way back. You're like, oh no, he's gone. Yeah, he's gone. He's behind this rectangle. So what we need to do is we need to be able to see that ball player, and this is kind of an advanced technique, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to format shape, and under fill, under the format shape, there's a transparency setting, so I can go in here and I can set this. I set that to say 25%, bam, there he is, and now I have that ball player underneath my image. Now I have to make sure that any of the stuff that I put onto it when I design my card later on, it's transparent so they can see through it. So like if I added a title on here, let's say I added a name. So let's say we do Paxton Friel. He's my leadoff hitter right now for my team, for the Kalamazoo Caribou. So let's say we did Paxton Friel and we put him out there. Well, look at that. Blocks him, right? So I would need to go in here. Set to no fill. Set to no line, and voila, perfect. Right, so little bit of size there, but yeah. So you kind of get the idea. So like I said, if you're interested in this, please like the video, subscribe to my page. I got another video out here that's been out here for about 10 years for some flying flight simulator that I was helping do beta testing for. But this is my second video on there. This is my first video where I actually talked. So I apologize for all the ums. I apologize for the microphone quality because it sucks. I've been playing with it all night. It's not going to work with me. So I'm gonna probably get a headset. I think that'll help. Um, and I'll work on my speech techniques a little bit. We'll kind of go together as I learn how not to say every 2 seconds. And they'll be great. So this is the first video, and like I said, if you like it, subscribe and like and all that good stuff, and tell me what you think.